Joining us now with more on the state of AI technology, the White House's big Stargate announcement this week, and much more. Former Nvidia engineer Sasha Ostojoic, venture partner at deep tech venture firm Playground Global. He also sits on the board of D-Matrix, a company that released its own AI chip in December. Sasha, it's great to have you with us this morning. Love to hear your thoughts initially just on Stargate, what it represents for what phase we are in right now in terms of this AI build-out. I mean, it feels as if the numbers are so large in terms of investment that we're still at this kind of blunt force phase of just building more capacity.
No, that's exactly, Mike. We are at the phase of building out infrastructure, building out all the enabling technologies for the kinds of applications and the kind of world that, the people at Davos talked about, like Satya, Dario, and Larry Fink. We have to invest in all the tooling, the infrastructure to enable those applications. And that's exactly what's happening right now. And Stargate is just the beginning, I think, of this renaissance of AI technology in this country, even though it seems like we've been in it for a few years. And reminds me of the Apollo program from the 50s and 60s. In that case, it was a government-run program that created a bunch of technology, propelled the world forward, created a bunch of companies, and set us up for a lot of prosperity in the decades to follow. With Stargate, $500 billion, or to say it a different way, $500 billion is going to build a lot of economic activity, pulling a lot of other companies forward as well.
Yeah, I mean, and that $500 billion, I mean, over 5 years, incremental. I mean, we already were hearing about, I think, the largest platform companies this year, perhaps collectively doing $250 billion in capital spending. The analogy to the space program is interesting in a sense, though, because the space program itself did not have to create a return on that investment. I know it just kicked off a lot of ancillary technologies and growth opportunities, but are we getting to a point where you're starting to need to see the products flourish?
I think we have a lot of early signs that products will flourish. Like you have very smart people, smarter than me, talking about the opportunity and what AI will unlock, like Satya Nadella is talking about lowering the floor and raising the ceiling for expertise. What's not shown in that clip, you further elaborated on that and talked about a world of 1 billion software developers, that AI will enable. And you would think like, wow, 1 billion software developers, what does that even look like? What does that mean? Well, if you think back like 20, 30 years, being a graphics designer was a skill set that only a few people could do, using sophisticated tools to create images and digital output. Well, right now, everybody with a smartphone is a graphics designer. So think of a world forward where AI will enable all of us to develop and create tools and apps, that we take for granted right now. It just will not look like a software developer in the future. And that's the kind of those are the kinds of use cases. And then further, healthcare, drug discovery, finance, weather modeling, material discovery. Those are the kinds of things that will be unlocked, and we already are seeing indications that will happen.
Sasha, President Trump rescinded that Biden order on AI and AI safety and signed a new executive order. There are a lot of conflicting reports and confusing language about both the Biden order and the new order. What's the bottom line takeaway of what the policy is from the White House on AI and specifically on AI safety right now?
Yeah, we're only 5 days into the Trump administration. There has been so much activity and with not enough clarity at this point to really say where this will go. Yes, there is a lot of focus on AI safety. As we talk about the upside, we have to really do a lot to ensure on the downside that consumers are protected, that we don't create dangerous technologies, dangerous outcomes. But I think it's still work in progress in terms of the current administration, how he's going to handle all that. And let me also remind you, the AI diffusion rule that happened just last week, with the outgoing Biden administration, that seemed like old news at this point, given all the activities, that and all the spotlight that Stargate is taking.
Sasha, what about the idea that perhaps there are lower cost ways to approximate the gains that we're seeing in things like OpenAI? I know the Chinese DeepSeek AI applications seem like they might be able to get close, and maybe this is going to be somewhat commodified, at least in the early stages.
Yeah, I think both can be true. There will be a lot of capability unlocked at the lower end, but obviously very smart people like Larry Ellison and Sam Altman and Masa Son from SoftBank and Elon Musk, with his own initiatives, they all think that building larger compute capability will lead to better outcomes and on our path to what we call artificial superintelligence. But there's a lot of research happening on the low end as well. And I think that playbook is still being written.
Just in market terms, it's been striking that Nvidia shares, they've been mostly sideways since the middle of last year, obviously after being up thousands of percent and having these massive moves higher in profitability. But is the market kind of questioning whether the value of Nvidia's head start in terms of the processing units is sustainable? How do you view that?
Yeah, it is interesting that it kind of has been going sideways the last few months. I think we're just waiting for the next big trigger, either down or up. I frankly hope it's up. And I think this is not investment advice, but given the level of activity, $500 billion with Nvidia as a key partner in that endeavor speaks a lot. I think, at this point, Nvidia is more supply constrained than being able to, and is unable to actually serve all their customers at this point. When that will end, I don't know. But I personally am very bullish on the prospects of Nvidia and all the other new entrants in this space, because, we should not all give up and think that Nvidia is going to take over the world. There's, in a growing market, in trillions of dollars being invested, huge opportunity for new entrants. You mentioned I'm on the board of D-Matrix. That is a company that's creating much more energy efficient, high performant inference accelerator for AI. There will be opportunities for a company like that to find their customer base.